So I left Jersey in March to work in the UK at Manoir Quat'Saisons, which is where Raymond Blanc's kind of home. So you may know him from the telly. And yeah, I worked there as a pastry chef.
How many chefs are at Le Manoir?
So in the main kitchen, I believe there is around 50. I'd say.
Wow.
And then in the pastry, there's 13 of us. Sometimes some people think, oh, pastry chefs don't know how to sharpen their knives. And I go, I worked in a main kitchen, start sharpening my knives. So, you know, sometimes you can be a bit of a dark horse in terms of the knowledge and experience you have. I guess being a female in the industry, you do doubt yourself and you do massively consider, you know, am I in a man's world? You know, is this where I'm meant to be? Being a chef is not just a last resort as a job, or being in hospitality is not just a last resort in the job, or just a middle ground just to get some extra money. And whilst you're, you know, in between jobs, it can be so much more, and it can just be so rewarding.
Emma, welcome to Hospitality Insights.
Thank you very much for having me.
And yeah, coming to Jersey on a short trip
Yeah.
before going back to work. Maybe you want to give us a few insights, like what do you currently do? What's your current job, basically? You know.
Yeah, so I'm currently a visitor in Jersey now, I guess. So I left Jersey in March to work in the UK at Manoir Quat'Saisons, which is where Raymond Blanc's kind of home. So you may know him from the telly. And yeah, I worked there as a pastry chef in their restaurant. So yeah, I started that almost 6 months ago now. So
6 months. So you've been doing it for 6 months. Is it like an apprenticeship, or you're already part of like fully integrated?
Yeah,
into the
so
team?
I'm a full-time employee
Wow,
there.
congrats!
So,
Well done, well done. So did you start as an apprentice, or how did it work, or you went straight into the job?
No, so I graduated from university in the UK in September of last year. And then I came back to Jersey and worked so I finished university in May of last year, sorry. And then came back to Jersey for the summer, worked at the Atlantic Hotel, which I've worked at since I was 18. So went back there in the summer, worked there up until January, and decided I wanted to move to the UK and find a job in the UK. So January of this year was all kind of job hunting and finding the job right for me all over the UK. So I did a bit of a road trip for a month around the UK. And then, yeah, I was very surprised and I got offered the job, and then started there in March, and I've been there since. So
wow, that's a really incredible journey, especially at your young age, you know, getting in a highly prestigious kitchen, like, is it 2 Michelin, I think?
Yeah,
right?
2 Michelin, yeah.
That's really impressive. But going back to the beginning of your short career, because it's not like some of the guys we had here, you know, they've been in hospitality for like 20 years, 30 years, you know. So yeah, it's how did you get into it? Because probably most women at your age, or girls, or, you know, even guys, whatever, you know, they don't really think about going into hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
Probably that's literally the last kind of resort. What made you pursue this career?
So at a young age, I guess, my family come from a farming background. So, you know, I've always been surrounded by food, I guess, and local food, you know, growing food. So that's something I'm really, you know, passionate about. And yeah, just always been surrounded by lovely food. Obviously living on Jersey, it's like a 9x5 larder of everything you can possibly want. So that was, you know, amazing in terms of, from a young age, being exposed to that. And then I suppose it was probably when I went to secondary school, did some home economics classes, had a really, you know, encouraging teacher. And that was so nice at the school I went to, you know, very much saw something that I was good at and really pushed me to go and do that. And then I suppose from there kind of did a few competitions over here, and thought I actually really enjoy doing this. And, you know, I want it to be my job. I want to get paid for this. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things at a young age. You know, my parents have always said to me, you know, just do something that you love and you enjoy, because you will never necessarily have to work a day in your life. Because, you know, if you're just so passionate about something, it doesn't feel like a job or feel like work. So I suppose, yeah, I did my A-levels here and then went off to university and did a degree in culinary arts management. So basically a degree in being a chef, I suppose. You can call it that. And then, I just went on from there. But
so you didn't do anything here in terms of like Highlands or stuff like that, you know?
No, so I did my A-levels and I did a basically A-level in kind of food science and nutrition. So that was the closest I could kind of get into food.
So that's here in Jersey?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I did that. I did that at school.
Like that,
yeah. And then started working in a professional kitchen at 18. But I suppose I was exposed to hospitality when I was 16, or maybe a bit earlier than that, with the Trident work experience. So I worked at the Royal Yacht for 2 weeks. And I suppose I remember
was
one
it
of
downstairs or upstairs?
Downstairs.
Okay.
So I did prep some squid. They just had loads of squid in, and I was so engrossed. I had squid ink on my face, but I didn't care. I went home, my hands stank of fish, but I was like, I'm just enjoying it, and I can't believe I get to do that. And then I think I just thought, you know what? I want that to be my job every day, where I'm just enjoying something. I'm doing something different every day, and learning. That's the biggest thing.
But were your parents on board with this? I mean, I know you said that, they were kind of like saying, do what you love.
Yeah.
But then when they figure out, you know what, she's going to be a chef. Like, no. Whether should we still support her or not? Were they on board with your decision?
I think, there's this massive perception of the industry and, the TV chefs and how the image is on television. And, I think as a parent, you maybe perhaps worry about your child if they're going into that industry. But I think the biggest thing is just surrounding yourself with the right people, surrounding yourself with where you want to be and who you want to be around. And that's the biggest thing, as long as you're happy at work. I think that's what they were just happy about. As long as you're happy at work and, that's all we can ask for, to be honest. So,
but why do you think you were attracted by this like fine dining world? Because you went obviously Atlantic again, fine dining, 3, 4 rosettes, probably on the way to get a star, or maybe being already at that level. When you're at that level, it's already kind of like subjective whether they should have a star or not. That's a different kind of story. But why do you think you've been attracted? Was it because of the beauty of the way everything looked, the way everything kind of was presented? What attracted you into the fine dining, not just hospitality? Why do you think was that?
I think for me, fine dining very much, it's the focus on every single ingredient. It's not just the skill level of the dish, it's also the produce that comes with it, the skill that goes right back to, the fisherman catching it, or even, hand dive scallops. That's going to not necessarily be a more bistro restaurant. It's going to be more fine dining, and you pay that price. But it does, say on the plate, and it does reflect on the plate that is, a premium. So I think for me, it's the massive thing on fine dining was the attention to detail, the produce, and the time it takes for all those dishes to, be produced on a plate. And it was just the biggest thing for me was attention to detail and tracing every ingredient on the plate right back to day dot, and that was the biggest thing that I was brought up on when I was really young. So, that's something that I'm really passionate about, and I really want that to be reflected on the plate. And I think that's what fine dining does. And guests are willing to pay that price, to be honest. So
for all that effort, obviously, it's a lot of effort and a lot of chefs behind it. And not just chefs, obviously, the whole machinery. But touching back on the school, because you didn't get into the kitchen by chance, obviously. It was a love from the beginning. You basically made your way up, through school, learning, everything else. Do you think like school is still important or quite important, in this industry?
Massively. I think it teaches you, it might sound cringy, but it teaches you so many life lessons, especially working in a kitchen. You have to work with so many different people. I think when I did my A-levels at school, I had to be with so many different people in my year group, in my cohort. So, and even at university, you have to socialize with so many people. You have to learn to interact with people. So you get those personal people skills, communication skills, which are so important, not just in hospitality, but in life in general. So I think massively, a lot of people say, you don't need to be a chef. You don't need school to be a chef. You can just go get your GCSEs, just basic maths and English, and then go straight out there. But I think there's so many different personal skills, life skills, and just to be a chef. I think everyone thinks that to be a chef, you just need to know how to peel a carrot or, you know, prep a piece of fish. But it's so much more than that. Well, when I went to university, obviously I did my degree in being a chef as such. So, you know, it's even things down to HR, marketing, people skills, costing, massive thing in the industry at the moment, you know, with after COVID, everything being more expensive, Brexit, especially over here.
Allergies, intolerance.
Everything.
Yeah,
and so many people think just to be a chef, you know, you just walk in and you just chop a few carrots and, you know how to do a basic soup, all that kind of stuff. But there is so much more to it. And I think that's what we need to change in the industry, that, you know, being a chef is not just a last resort as a job, or being in hospitality is not just a last resort in the job, or just a middle ground just to get some extra money. And whilst you're, you know, in between jobs, it can be so much more, and it can just be so rewarding. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, but it just reaps so many rewards. And I think at the end of the day, there needs to be that, not necessarily understanding, but, you know, actually being a chef isn't a bad job, and it's not for people that, you know, aren't, you know, intelligent.
You need to be skilled. You need to know, and especially like you, I'm sure, you know, in time you're gonna want to progress, and then you're gonna get to a point you need to run a kitchen, you need to run people, you need to understand costing. So it's so much more about it, and I totally agree. So you hit the nail on the head with that, because probably if you're at the beginning, you are just, when you start, you know, it feels like it's, you know, everybody can do it. You know, if let's say it comes to like peeling carrots and, you know, comic style, you know, jobs, but the more you go up the ladder, you know, the more skills you need to have in order to kind of like be able to withstand that job or whatever you're doing. And I agree on that. But then after you finish, well, not finished really, here in Jersey, you know, how did you get to Atlantic? What was that?
So I went to my university open day and spoke to one of the lecturers that was obviously my lecturer when I went to university, and mentioned that I was from Jersey. Obviously, it's quite unique to say, oh, where are you from? And a lot of people from the UK go, I'm from Cornwall, or I'm from, you know, Nottingham or whatever.
You were the unusual one.
I said, oh, I flew all the way here just for an interview for university. But no, I spoke to him and he said, oh, actually, somebody who used to be a student here is actually working with a chef who's just moved to Jersey. And at the time it was Will Holland at the Atlantic, and said, oh, let me give him an email, because one of the issues I had, but before I went to university, I wanted to have a bit of understanding of working in a industrial kitchen. I had a glimmer in Trident, which was 2 weeks. But after that, there was nothing further from that. It was mainly to do with, I think a while ago, for health and safety reasons, you weren't allowed to work in a kitchen under a certain age. So that's why I went down doing competitions and things to get those skills up. But going back to this email, he said, let me give him your email. And so I sent an email and just said to Will Holland, could I come and have a chat with you at the Atlantic? And that was probably 6 months before I finished school, and went to go and see Will Holland at the Atlantic and had a little chat with him and just said, I really want to get some skills before I go to university. I just want to have a bit of basic understanding of in a kitchen and that learning environment before I go off to study. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll see what I can do. Within an hour, he sent me an email saying, yep, you're on board for summer. See you then.
That was quick.
It was a bit like, okay, this is happening. And then I was there so I started in the July and then left to go to university in September. And then just kept in contact whilst I was at university. And then every single time I was back in Jersey, he said, do you want to do a few shifts? So I went back then and just kept on going back. And then that kind of was a 5-year on-off situation. Wow. So and learned so much there.
Do you think that had a lot to play, you know, getting you in the situation where you are now? Do you feel like you would be in this situation without it, or could you basically be in the situation that you are now without having that experience?
I think sometimes it's not what you know, sometimes it's who you know. So you know, I think the best thing in hospitality is someone else knows somebody else, and then knows somebody else. Yeah. So, you know, hospitality you think is such a broad industry, but everybody knows everyone. regardless of
true.
one way or another, through a person, through a supplier, through, just one single thing. And, it's a massive chain. So I think, just from that initial having that courage to send that email, kind of then everything just carried on rolling. So, and I think the best thing in hospitality is surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
Not only just from a professional perspective, but from a personal perspective. That's why I enjoyed the Atlantic so much, was because of the team. They become your family and you see them more than your family. So I think the biggest thing within me progressing to where I am now is the people, and hospitality is such a people industry, so I think massively I have to thank everybody that has been part of my 5 years on and off, but every single person that I've met along the way has helped me in one way or another. And I think that you always look back and go, that person was really there for me at that time, or they really pushed me to get to where I am. So yeah, I think massively.
Would you say that, do you have a mentor, or did you get in that time, would you say that Will play like quite an important role, or was he somebody else before that? Who do you feel like was your mentor, or maybe even to this day,
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've got someone that, if I have a question, that probably I've not been in this situation before, I can message or get in touch with someone, to get that info from?
I think obviously, as I said, from day dot, my parents were always there, do what makes you happy, push yourself, every opportunity you have, just go for it, and seize the day as such, So I think massively every single person I've had through my stages of life as such, my parents, teachers, lecturers at university, you even networking with people and colleagues from university, we all started from the same on the same route, on the same path, and we've all gone in all different directions, but we've all got the same qualification. So, but I think Will Holland, I can't thank him enough, and the team at the Atlantic, who were always there, not just, as I said, not just professionally, but personally, there's always those people in hospitality that you can turn to who are always going to be there, because they've seen you at your high times, seen you at your low times, and everything in between. So, but I think always there's going to be those people who really push you. But at the same time, you have to push yourself in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, your idols always change, but you're always going to have those people at pivotal moments who pushed you and supported you and really got you through those moments. So obviously, only being in the industry for 5 years and working at the Atlantic, I can say, I've had such a great boss. But who's there to say that, further down the line, there might be someone who's equally as good, but I mean, everything from day dot Will was always there, and there was always, that support and always that sense of home. And I think they always say you will never forget your first mentor. And he was. The pinpoint and start of my career was there. So,
because the reason I'm asking is because he's so proud of you. I mean, I talked to him yesterday, and that's why I kind of like touch on Will, because he was like so proud, like talking about you, like it was someone, that I work with, or I kind of like had some sort of like, I push some sort of knowledge towards, that, he's done so well, and so proud of you. So that says a lot. So, and you confirmed this. So everything it's basically, is right the way I kind of felt it, when he was talking about you.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing for chefs like Will Holland is that, they have so much knowledge and experience. And I think the biggest thing for chefs within the industry now, they just want to pass on that knowledge. And that's where I'm working now at the moment at Le Manoir. That is one of the biggest things. If you learn one thing, pass it on to the person next to you straight away. It's that constant learning and evolving. And because at the end of the day, the person behind you is can help you in a time of need. So you are that whole cohesive and part of a team. You always have to be learning from one another and developing one another and pushing one another. So, I think for chefs who have had years experience, they just want to pass on that knowledge because they had that when they were young and in the industry.
Right,
yeah. So it's just always passing on that knowledge. And he will always said every day is a school day. So, you know, you can always constantly learn, right. You can constantly evolve, you can constantly progress and push yourself. I was going back to saying, you know, being a chef, you could just peel carrots. But, you know, if it takes you half an hour to peel a massive bag of carrots, next time, try and make it 25 minutes. Constantly push yourself. It may be, yeah, okay, you think, oh, this is a boring job. But no job is ever boring if you make it interesting yourself and you push yourself and go, okay, I can improve on this. I can develop on this. And then chefs do see that and go, okay, they're really pushing themselves. They don't mind if they're peeling carrots. And then actually, when I'm prepping some lobster, I'll call them over and they can just watch. You know, you can learn so many things just from watching, from researching, from writing things down. So, you know, you can learn from everybody and everywhere. So
yeah, he did say about the right attitude, which by the way you talk and the way how passionate you are, you definitely do have that. And he was like, I'd rather take a chef, you know, with the right attitude, you know, or not a chef, even a person that never actually touched, never been in a kitchen before, than someone that kind of pretends that he's a chef and that just doesn't want to learn more, because it's constant, like exactly as you're saying, you know, you constantly learn. It's such a huge, vast field, you know, this industry, and you, till last moment of your life, I guess it's constant learning.
Well, I had a phrase the other day from another hospitality podcast, and one female chef said, you know, I'd rather take obviously someone with an attitude. It's more attitude, not aptitude. You know, I did kind of say, you know, there's that whole thing of being a chef and having that knowledge behind you. But if you go in with a willingness to learn and a notepad, that is the biggest thing I will give is go in with a notepad and pen, have that there ready to make notes, and you may strive further than somebody who, you know, there is this whole idea or attitude sometimes in the hospitality that, you know, you have to be the big bravo, you know, I'm amazing kind of thing. But it's actually take a step back, go in with a humble attitude and just an openness to learn. Go, you know, I don't know everything. I may know how to do odd things, or my knife skills may not be the best, but I want to improve on that. And I want to learn. I want to be here. And that will just take you so far, I think.
How many chefs are at Le Manoir?
So in the main kitchen, I believe there is around 50, I'd say.
Wow.
And then in the pastry, there's 13 of us. So it's a big operation. You know, every single person has their
so then
part
when
in the
people
machine.
are wondering, you know, why they paying the amount they paying, you know, that's already an answer for not even talking about the ingredients and everything else, and the location, how beautiful it is, and obviously front of house. Don't forget about them, because someone's got to take the food out.
Yeah, definitely. They are the transporter of the food. If you don't have them, then who's going to give the food to the guest? And I think that is also a massive thing in terms of being in hospitality and being a chef at university. I had to do front of house. Part of my degree was you will spend...
To understand both sides, I guess, right?
Yeah, you will spend 12 weeks doing front of house, polishing the cutlery, taking the trays, all that kind of stuff.
Did you find it stupid at the beginning? He's like, I don't want to be at front of house. You know,
there was a few people who were going, oh, I'm just going to pull a sick day on that day. I'm just going to say I'm ill and all this kind of thing. But, you know, it taught me so much. And I think there's that whole understanding of, you know, you see chefs shouting at front of house and they're not doing their job and all this stuff. But once you understand what they have to do on their side of the pass, you understand, okay, if I call for service, let's wait a few minutes. They might be someone on their way coming to the kitchen. They may have dropped something. Yeah, or they may have dropped some cutlery in there. Oh, I need to, you know, reset the cutlery, all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, a child, they need to get a high chair from somewhere, you know, all those different things within front of house that they have to manage. They have to manage chefs, which can be the hardest people to manage or
so that
to
friction,
appease.
I guess, is still there, right?
Yeah,
it's not like...
there will always be, you know, because, you know, I prepared these plates all day. You need to take this tray now, all this kind of stuff. I've heard it before. I've heard it in so many different places and you see it on TV.
Yeah.
And it is the reality. But, you know, I think you have to have that mutual understanding and that mutual respect. Without one or the other, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, you may have taken all day to prepare the food, but at the end of the day, they are the final part of the destination. They are taking the food. They are presenting the food. They're explaining the food. There is so much art and so much difference in placing a plate down and going, here's your dish, and walking away. You know, that whole explanation, that whole understanding and care is the final part. If you fall at the last hurdle, that's it,
Well,
you know?
you're
And
right.
so I think any person that works in hospitality has to at least spend an hour, a day, whatever, doing front of house.
I think that's a good advice, to be fair. I never thought about it, but yeah, I think, you know, both, and probably the other way around.
Other way around as well, yeah.
Because then,
all
you know,
chefs just going front of house now. But
yeah,
no.
that's it. Yeah, the other way around, just to kind of like both understand each other. Because yeah, sometimes you feel like it's a bit disjointed, you know, these two sides are a bit disjointed, and then they seem to be like in a constant fight and kind of like looking for a fight sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I work in kitchen where it was like, I'm not saying everywhere is like that, but there were situations where like I kind of like you could see the head chef like looking for situations where to get, you know, to throw a punch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is not really good, but yeah, here we are. Okay, so what kind of got you into pastry? Because now, okay, we know you wanted, the passion was to be a chef, but then from preparing squid at the Royal Yacht to now making maybe, I don't know, puff pastry or whatever you guys doing, considering that you're that many, you probably do pretty much, like not pretty much, everything from scratch.
Yeah.
What kind of got you on that side?
So I was at the Atlantic and doing a mixture of, you know, veg, so the veg section or the garnish, the larder, and a bit of pastry on the side. And then on my days off, it was kind of going way back to, I had to do a placement year. And there was a pastry chef who taught me how to make chocolate bonbons. And I thought, wow, you know, a machine can't necessarily do this. This is something that, you know, there's always that personal touch within hospitality and being a chef. But there was that sense in pastry, a machine can't do that. This can only be done by hand. There's a real creativity within hospitality, but I felt that in pastry, I could kind of have a bit more of my personal touch, you know, that kind of art form. It is a dying art form. And I think a lot of chefs can do main kitchen and a bit of pastry, but, you know, not wholly. And there are a crying need for pastry chefs. I've always had a sweet tooth.
Okay, so that helped, I guess.
You know,
you
always had a sweet tooth, but it was going back to making these chocolate bonbons, and on my days off, I would just be going, okay, what chocolate shall I make this week? Constantly asking for pastry books on Instagram. That's a massive thing, you know, getting inspiration from Instagram, seeing what different people are doing, you know. And I thought, where do I see my future in hospitality? And I always thought, I'll always love main kitchen. I will always appreciate it. I will always enjoy it. But where do I truly enjoy being in the kitchen the most? And it was pastry, you know, taking raw ingredients and transferring it to one thing, or you change something slightly and it's something completely different. And that's what pastry is all about. It's all about the chemical reactions. And
that's why I don't like it. You know,
precision.
Me, and I work in the kitchen myself all the way to, well, I work a bit as a head chef as well. And I'm like, okay, so now we got to do it. You know, there's no other way now, you know.
Yeah. You got to follow it step by step.
I got to do it. And exactly, yeah, that's the part that's the hardest. And I think probably for most chefs, you know, because you always want to be like, add a bit of yourself in, and then you can, but you're kind of limited with pastries. You know, you're just gonna we're just gonna go with a bit more butter because I feel like it. Probably it's not gonna work.
And the end result, you go, shouldn't have done that now.
Well, this is it. Yeah, that's why I thought. And to be fair, it kind of worked. It worked well on my side because I don't really like sweets that much. So I'm like, you know, I can survive with it. My wife, she's not that happy because I never really make anything sweet at home. So I'm okay with cooking in general, but then when it comes to sweets, it's not as...
it's where the cookie crumbles, excuse the pun.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. So how was do you remember the first time you step into the 2-star kitchen? Was it like a lot different than you expect? Was it as you expected? How was it? Because it must have been quite a feeling, right?
Yeah, so I obviously had to go through the interview process. So my first day, it wasn't, you know, the first time I was stepping into the kitchen, but, you know, so many greats have worked in that kitchen or, you know, eaten at Le Manoir. So, you know, when you walk down the lavender path, which is so iconic within the industry, or you speak to so many chefs about where you work and they go, wow, I went there, or I'd love to go there. So I remember walking in and going, oh my gosh, I get to work here, you know, and I'll never forget it. And I had a bit of, I'm going to be honest, imposter syndrome. I was a bit like, coming from Jersey, like how have I got here?
Yeah.
And it's going back to that attitude, just breathe, just calm, cool, calm and collected going into that kitchen, and just, again, being humble and honest. It is nerve-wracking, but every single day I pinch myself and I go, I can't believe I've worked there. And when you leave work and you see, the English flag and the French flag, and you just go, wow.
Do you have the big boss like coming in the kitchen quite often? Raymond Blanc? You see that?
So he walks past and says hello to everybody, shakes them by the hand. And he always teaches everybody to, if he teaches you something, he'll say, okay, pass that on to the person next to you. So again, it's going back to that whole constantly evolving and learning from other people, and being around people that want to learn, and I think that's what is to be recognized in the industry, that, there's not people demanding things and saying, you need to know this, you need to know that. It's being open-minded and going, okay.
Yeah. I hope he's a good friend with Michel Roux Jr., because I always kind of compare him with him, like the way, at least the way he looks. I never met any of them. You met them both, I think. But just at least the way they look on TV, they kind of feel like the same and calm, and the way they explain, I feel like they have something, obviously, the French side, no question about it. But I kind of compare them, being like that. I don't know how they are obviously in real life, like service probably turns them into something totally different. That's a different story. But again, it's a lot of pressure on a lot of pressure on these guys, and no question, that Michel Roux Jr. is going to close down the Le Gavroche, which is the end of an era there.
Definitely,
Just thinking, how many great chefs came out of that kitchen is just insane. But obviously all that pressure, the age.
I think I think a lot of people take it as, oh my gosh, they're closing, there must be something wrong with the machine. But that machine has been going on for years and years. So, I think sometimes from an outside perspective, you have to consider all the internal things that they have to consider. It's not just, their job, it's their business. So, that's massively a thing that, if people want to change their career or take a step back, they are human. I think that's a massive thing, seeing chefs on TV who become, these TV chefs, but also they have had grafted and had hard work in the industry. So, seeing Raymond Blanc on the television, very cool, calm and collective, that is how he is. That is how he is 100%. And Benoit Blanc runs the Pastry of Le Manoir. So he is one of the judges on Bake Off Professionals. So again, a lot of people ask me, as he is your boss as such, does he come across the same way at work? And I said 100%, as he does on the telly. You do get those people that potentially, create a TV persona of being a chef and how they are. But I can say the people that I've worked for or met who are, well known for TV, they've also done the hard graft and done the hard work to get where they are. So, I think that attitude that they come across on telly does quite a lot of the time replicate and translate in real life. So, I think Raymond Blanc is such a pivotal person within the industry. As you said, La Gavroche, it's such a iconic place. And I think that's what Raymond Blanc tries to teach everyone in the industry or works at Le Manoir, is pass on that knowledge to somebody, because, he has created such a iconic place, not just in UK hospitality, but within France and pretty much in the world. So, it's all about, if he can pass on that tiny bit of Raymond Blanc magic to somebody else, that is his legacy. And that's something I think in hospitality you have to always consider. Do
you feel like he's gonna get into a situation, probably not close down the place, but just be like, eventually he will, no question, but do you feel like that's close, or it's far away from like him kind of like stepping down and be like, guys, this is it, I'm out, I'm going, I don't know where?
I think he has such a strong core team within the kitchen and the foundations. So Luke Selby just became the head chef beginning of this year, I believe. And that's it. Well, it seems to be, part of the forward planning and part of the future. Le Manoir is not just a place to eat. At the end of the day, it is a business. So, they do have business heads on and a business mind and the future of the industry and but anything could happen. You know, no one knew about COVID, and that just turned everything on its head. So, you know, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day or even a week ahead. It's the same when you work in hospitality. When you walk through the doors, you don't know how it's going to be from one day to the next. So I think, you know, you can only plan as much as you can in the industry, but it is so diverse, so different every day that, you know, who knows where everyone's going to be in a year's time. So, yeah.
What are your plans now? Because you got already at a young age, you're already a 2-star place, you know, known worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see your progression going? I know I'm going to ask you the classic question, how do you see yourself in 5 years? Because probably not necessarily that, but either one of them, whether short term, medium or long, how do you see yourself, you know, from now on progressing?
I think for me, obviously, I do only have a small amount of experience in the industry, and it is such a massive industry and so diverse. So, you know, I think I'm really happy where I am now. Obviously, it's only early days, only 6 months in. But, you know, I think for me, one of the biggest things is where can I go that I will learn and I can push myself. And that was the biggest thing of leaving Jersey. You know, although I love Jersey and it is my home and I will always be a Jersey bean, as they say, I wanted to push myself and see what the UK industry had to offer, you know, in hospitality. So I think, you know, as I said before, everything is constantly changing and evolving. So, but I think the biggest thing for me is where can I go? I have a bit of not a tick box, but, you know, where can I go that I can push myself? Where can I go that is passionate about local produce or seasonal produce? And yeah, ultimately an environment where I can learn, push myself. And also it's that whole thing of the work-life balance. I know it may sound cliche and things like that. And yes, okay, in hospitality you do long hours, and it is not sad to say, but, you know, it is not just a job, it is a lifestyle choice. It's a bit like my grandpa is a farmer, and that is a lifestyle choice. You know, he's
doing probably many more hours than a chef.
Exactly. You have to wake up early in the morning. You know, if the animals need feeding, they need feeding. You can't just delay it. You have to. It's a constant cycle. So, you know, hospitality is a lifestyle choice, not just a job. And I think, you know, ultimately you can do that for X amount of years, but, you know, will I be doing that when I'm 60 or at retirement age or even further? It may not be sustainable enough. And I think that's one of the biggest things in the industry now is making sure people have that work-life balance so they can work in the industry for longer. So I guess, yeah, who knows where the industry takes me? Maybe I'll be back here.
Do you see yourself back in Jersey? Like maybe, but do you see yourself like opening your own restaurant, running? I know it's like, there are things, you know, that obviously are so early to ask, but have you had these ever cross your mind? You know, that, you know what, maybe one day, why not a restaurant here in Jersey, local staff, you know, a bit of Jersey Royals, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was always the dream, you know, when I was 16, and probably every single person that you spoke to that wanted to be in the industry was like, I want to have my own restaurant, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But then seeing the graph that goes into that and the amount of work, that dream will always be a dream, but whether it becomes a reality may be something very different. You know, and Jersey will always be my home. It's got so much to offer, which I think people don't realize. I think the food scene is so amazing at the moment. I think, you know, if it ever happened that I came back, I don't think I'd be complaining. You know, because there's so much to offer. It's a 9x5 larder of everything you could ever want. As a chef, you know, a bit of like a kid in a candy store. So I think some people don't realize how amazing hospitality is over here. So, you know, maybe in the future. But I think I've got a long way to go and a lot to learn in the industry. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It's just one of those things.
But then, are your plans outside of the UK or Jersey? Have you ever considered this as well? When you, probably not right now, I'm asking not right now, but when you made the move from Jersey to the UK, had you considered, like, at the time, you know, maybe, you know what, why not France? Why not, I don't know, Spain is quite big now, you know, Italy, whatever, you know. Did you think about that at the time?
Initially for me, I think obviously coming from Jersey, you do sometimes have that sense of being in the bubble. So you're kind of you know,
It's a huge change
making the leap to the UK. I think I didn't realize how much of a challenge it would be for me until I actually did it. But you know, I mean, who knows? You don't know where job opportunities are going to arise from knowing people, or, you know, things just I think everything happens for a reason. So, you know, who knows? I might get a job in France, or even just going and doing, a lot of people now in the industry go and do stages and just go and work somewhere for free just to get that experience. And even when I did job trials in January, I learned so much from so many different places in such a short amount of time. I may have been in a kitchen for 4 or 5 hours, but just seeing how a different kitchen runs and what they offer just provided so much more knowledge. And that is something that I think in the industry, just expose yourself to everything and anything. You may not like you may think you like something and you go there and go, this is not the kitchen for me at all. Or you may go to another place and go, I really like this place. You know, I've learned a lot from these people. So I think, again, it's going back to that willingness and openness to learn. If you can go for stages and go and say, I just want to come and work here for 2 hours, is that possible? And a lot of the time chefs are willing to, again, pass on that knowledge. So, you know, I think in terms of going to different countries, it would be amazing. It's just finding that right opportunity, or having that one chat with somebody, and then just goes on from one step to another. So
let me tell you what happens to me whenever I go to Romania. Probably not that much, because they kind of, most of the people that know me now, they know that I'm not in hospitality anymore. So, well, still connected with these podcasts and whatever else, but not working specifically. So I'm going home and they're like, can you cook something for me? Can you do this? You know, I know you like cooking. Can we do something fancy? You know, I'm buying the ingredients. All you have to do is the cooking. Do you get stuff like that here when you're coming from the UK, people saying, or your family or some friends, can you do something for us? You know, something fancy.
Yeah, I mean, I get a few people going, oh, can you make us something that you do at work? And it's like, I don't have the ingredients. I do not have the equipment. So it's kind of that sense of, well, I'll bake you something or I'll cook you something, but it won't be, you know, the 2 Michelin standard or whatever. So, you know, but you always take things from wherever you work, and you do get that thing of people going, so what's your favorite thing to cook? And you go, I don't know, because that's always a question you get asked. And I just think I just like cooking everything. But there is always that sense, even coming from Jersey, they go, oh, you know, can you cook something from Jersey? And I go, well, do you have the Jersey ingredients? And they go, well, no. Point. And I think that makes such a difference. I mean, I obviously rave about Jersey milk, and that is something obviously I was brought up on. So, you know, and I am biased, and I will say it's amazing produce over here. But I've noticed so much in the UK between butter, milk, cheese, you know, all the unique stuff we have over here. Don't get me wrong, the UK has amazing produce in terms of fish, in terms of meat. But I think just sometimes you can't compare to Jersey food. And since I've been back, you know, I've been to a few places to eat out, and what translates the most on the plate is the produce, massively. Yes, okay, you pay the price for that, but even just having, you know, Jersey milk in my tea, I can massively notice the difference. And everyone in the UK, I think, thinks you're a bit snobbish, saying, oh, you know, you like your golden top Jersey milk, and you go, well, have you had it before? And you'll notice the difference, because for me personally in the UK, there is such a difference. And I think the food industry in the UK in terms of suppliers and things like that isn't wholly respected or appreciated as much as we do here. And I personally think here we can push that even more in terms of the understanding of food over here, and how unique the produce is over here. You know, I will be biased about it, but ultimately I think it's the truth. You know, I did my dissertation on local food and about culinary tourism, and I think that something that we have so unique over here can attract tourists, and tourists sometimes don't even realize we have all the things we have over here. You know, Jersey lavender.
We don't promote them properly.
Jersey,
right?
Jersey honey. You know, all those kind of things. You know, cheese, milk. Everyone thinks of it as the 5. You know, seafood, cows, milk, cheese, shellfish, all that kind of stuff. But there is so much breadth and depth to the produce we have over here. And I think that's something massively that can attract people to come over here, and then people don't realize. So, you know, I'm even taking things back for people who I work with, or you know, friends in the UK saying, "Oh, I'll bring you some stuff back from Jersey to try." You know, limited, obviously. Someone did say, "Can you bring back a cow?" And I said, I don't think I can get it that far. But you know, it's all about educating people, and you know, going back to being in the industry, educating people, understanding, and it's such a cultural thing over here about the produce. You know, the way Jersey rolls are grown, that goes back way back, you know, and the uniqueness of how they're grown, how they're harvested. And it's such a part of Jersey heritage that I think people over here don't realize they have on their doorstep. And that's what I miss being in the UK. You know, being back here, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got Jersey rolls on my doorstep, or I've got an honesty box that I can just drive to and get some strawberries on my way home. All of those kind of things that I think, stepping away from Jersey, you realize how lucky people in Jersey are. But the saddest thing is that it comes at a price. And I think a lot of people find
and obviously
that hard.
Limited amount as well. It's just as much as you can grow on this island. Yeah. There is a lot, but then obviously everything is limited amount, and then we rely quite a bit on ferry aside from that. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah, there is a lot, limited amount, but then obviously you're gonna pay the price for it because it's just that much.
But I think if you are going to eat out, and you know they advertise, you know, local seafood or foraged, you know, sea vegetables. That's what we used to do at the Atlantic. You know, I used to go down foraging along St. Juan's, getting sea veg. And that translated massively when you were speaking to a guest, because they would say, oh, wow, this seaweed butter. And I go, actually, it was from the beach just down there. Foraged, you know, 2 days ago, made it into a powder, and it's in the Jersey butter now that you are eating with your sourdough. And they go, wow. And it's that personal touch, going back to, you know, the accolades and things like that. It's that extra personal touch that makes somebody's experience when they're eating so much different. And I think hospitality and food is not just about eating out and eating the food. It is an experience. It's from the way someone pulls your chair out. It's from the way, you know, that piece of fish is cooked beautifully. It's the way, has it been, you know, hand dived scallop, or is it, you know, locally caught? Is it, you know, from the UK? All those kind of things, and about air miles and all that stuff just computes and translates into the plate. So I think in terms of produce and things like that, and going back to the personal touch of a chef, there's some simple things like foraging that, you know, aren't expensive, because you can just go out once you have the knowledge. It's free. You know, you go out, and that can translate so much into on the plate and for the guests. So even at the Manoir, you know, grow a lot of our own produce and things, and I think that massively translates on the plate to the guest, and going, wow, somebody has taken the time to pick those, even down to garnish and flowers and things like that. You know, they've taken the effort, they've taken the time to go out and do that, and put that personal touch on a plate. Speak so many words, I think.
You touched on so many ingredients already, and one of my questions was like, what are your favorite local ingredients? Do you have like, if it's top 3, because now you already mentioned quite a few.
For me, I love black butter. It's something that everyone goes, you know, doesn't know a lot about. There's so much history to it. It's sweet and savory product, and it's so diverse and it's so unique. I remember, I think Jersey Dairy once did a black butter ice cream, and it didn't sell. And the reason was because there wasn't that understanding of what it actually was. Everyone thought it was black butter, you know, and it's that knowledge and that understanding, and that's something, you know, is so unique. I think the local brewery, so Liberation Ale, I think all that stuff is really unique. Marcus Calvani recently making vodka, you know, at the Jersey Royals. That's something so unique, and something that, you know, a lot of people don't know about Jersey. So, you know, you do have, you know, the traditional Jersey produce.
That kind of everybody knows, but then there's so much more.
Yeah, I mean, today I was speaking to somebody, so we were talking about, I went up to my dad's allotment and he grows a lot of his own veg. And I said, oh, he's growing kiwis. And she said, kiwis in Jersey? And yeah, it can happen. You know, it can be sustainable, it can be viable. Even growing Jersey lemons, it is a thing. It's just not, it's not out there.
I heard recently about that. Yeah, you didn't know about the lemons either. To be fair.
But obviously you have, you know, your Jersey strawberries, which are amazing.
Yeah.
You know, raspberries, tomatoes, Jersey Royals, obviously. You know, I think they taste so different over here when you get them off the 5 Mile Road, or up, you know, near one of the local honesty boxes and things like that. Tastes so different to whether you get Jersey Royals in the UK or you get Jersey Dairy in the UK. So a lot of my friends always go, oh, I've seen some Jersey produce in the UK supermarkets. And I go, thanks for telling me. That's really nice, but it does not taste the same as over here.
Your standard is just totally different. No, it's just true.
I mean, I am so lucky, to obviously be brought up on that produce and things like that. But, you know, I don't think, you realise how special it is until you...
Yeah, absolutely. By the time they get to the UK, they all try and... Yeah, it's not the same.
You just have to fly over to get the real experience.
Absolutely.
But as I said, it's a massive larder or a massive pantry of produce. It's just, again, going back to the education and people knowing about it. Even back to, you know, some people may find it or may not like the idea of, you know, Jersey dairy cow being used for meat. You know, we just think of it being used for milk. But, you know, it's the whole part of the life cycle or the food system.
It would go to waste.
Exactly.
Right?
It's the whole part of the food system. So, you know, obviously people have their own opinions and ideas of, you know, vegetarianism is really on the rise. And, you know, that's something that you have to cater for in hospitality, understandably. But, you know, it's the whole supporting the evolution of the industry, and it's a life cycle at the end of the day. It's how it works. It's how it's always, that's what it's there to do. So, you know, I think Jersey dairy, in terms of Jersey dairy cow, using it for meat is something that's underrated. But if you think the flavor that comes from that, in terms of it's an animal that has worked a lot of its life, and worked a lot of its life, and you know, all that things. It's just it's a byproduct from something. If you can use it for two things, it's a win-win situation. And you know, obviously consumers have a bit more of a I don't know, I guess an idea and a bit more of a cautiousness about what they're eating and things like that. But, you know, I think we can always educate ourselves and be open-minded about what there is to offer and things like that. So I think massively that's an underrated ingredient in Jersey. Obviously, again, it comes a bit of a premium. But, you know, it's all about being open-minded and trying it. If you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. But I think at least try it instead of having a preconceived idea and saying that is fact when you know sometimes it may not be.
But do you feel like people in Jersey now coming to trying, you know, and being a bit more open? Do you feel like they're a bit more open in the UK than here? How do you feel? You know, I mean, I know you've not been there for ages. It's not like your experience is very vast, but from your experience so far, do you feel like they're a bit more open for new ingredients, for tasting something new than Jersey, for example?
I think in the UK, there's a lot of, you know, trends, and there's a lot of people that latch onto a trend and then it fizzles out. So, you know, and I think sometimes in the industry, people latch onto a trend and it gets lost in translation, or it's not actually true of what's being sold. I think over here, you're in quite a close community in terms of, you know, if you know that someone's selling something, you get that idea of, okay, they may be telling the truth, or I've heard from so-and-so that they're not. So, you know, there is quite a close community, and word of mouth gets around quite quickly. So, you know, if there's a new restaurant opening or there's a new person supplying something, you go, oh, I'll try that. And then it a snowball effect. Whereas in the UK, obviously you have a larger area to cover. So, you know, if something's a trend, it takes quite a while for it to build up. But I think over here, it's that whole, I think the biggest thing is cost. People don't want to try things because it's expensive, or they think if I've spent all that money and I don't like it, then, you know. So I think there's always that thing that, you know, you have to find a right environment for people to be able to try things, but also educate people about what they're going to be trying, so then they are willing to try it or willing to spend that money. At the end of the day, if you want to buy produce, it is a business transaction. So I think there's that whole idea of you need to educate your consumer or educate your buyer about what they're having, benefits and everything. It's a bit like selling a product. When you buy a TV, you don't just buy a TV. You read about it, you look into it. So I think you kind of sometimes have to treat food like that. Read about it, experience it, try it in something else, disguise it in something, and then you may like it, and then gradually go from there. But I think, it's a lot easier to try things over here in terms of community, because you'll go, oh, I heard from somebody. Once you hear from one person, you'll hear from 5 other people, and you'll go, okay, I have 5 people telling me I need to try this. I'll go and try it. So yeah, I think it's all to do with the community, I think, over here, in comparison to the UK. UK is so vast in terms of trying ingredients,
Now, going back to your beginning, which it wasn't like ages ago, let's be honest.
No.
But for people that want to, I mean, you have so much knowledge. Genuinely, you have so much knowledge, and you're so passionate and you're willing to learn even more, which is amazing. And I'm sure our conversation, if let's say we'll do a podcast again in a few years' time, will be even more insightful. But for people that would like to get into your situations, like, oh, this is so cool, she's working on Le Manoir, why not? I could do it. What's your advice, for them? How should they approach this?
I think massively, as I said earlier, it's attitude, it's having the right mindset, knowing that it's a tough industry. I think a lot of people probably my age expect, I'll work a few hours and I'll get paid for it. But it's making sure you work for those hours, and obviously hospitality is quite a demanding industry. You're on your feet all the time. You also do have to take care of yourself. So I think, obviously go in with the right attitude, go in the right mindset, and be there ready to learn, but also be kind to yourself. I mean, I think there's been a lot of times where I've probably been quite hard on myself, and especially, I guess, being a female in the industry, you do doubt yourself, and you do massively consider, am I in a man's world? Is this where I'm meant to be? Shall I just? It's different. I will say that, and I think a lot of females are maybe scared to go in the industry. And don't get me wrong, there have been times where I have questioned myself and gone, well, is it because I'm a female? But I think massively that has spurred me on, going, do you know what? I will push myself, and I will prove all those people wrong that think that a female cannot be in a kitchen. Again, there's that idealized image of a female being in a kitchen and being, a work wife or staying at home, cooking the dinners for when, that is a very traditional, image. But I think, again, going back to the whole thing of surrounding yourself with the right people and being in the right environment is something that has massively kept me in the industry. And, again, seeing females in the industry who are really striving and really giving men a run for their money, is something that I think massively, just because I am a female doesn't mean that I can't do your job or I can't do it as better than you. And I think a lot of guys who I've worked with in a kitchen, there was a few years where I was the only female. So I had a lot of big brothers in the kitchen, who obviously I was the youngest. But, I think once you not prove yourself in the industry, but once you have that, say, I'm here to stay. And if you don't like it, tough, because I'm here to stay and I'm here to work. I can do something as good as you, but also I may not do something as good as you, and I'm here to learn. So I think there's always got to be, it's never going to go away. I think there's always going to be, that idea of, males being more superior in the industry than females. But I think we can reduce that gap. We're never going to eliminate it. I think we can reduce it. And I think we have to openly show that in the industry, it's not what it's shown on TV. Equally, there are those moments, but you can work in harmony with males. And also, if you say, I am here to stay and I'm here to learn, and go in with a humble attitude, you get that respect from male chefs. So yeah, don't get me wrong, it's tough standing against males in a male orientated environment, but you know, at the end of the day, it's like any workplace. I think if you work in any other industry, you know, you will get that divide and that contrast. It's just more common in hospitality because of the lifestyle, you know, that females aren't tough enough to be a chef. But you
Not
know,
anymore.
no, girl power. But yeah, you know, I think you just have to go in with that open mindset and be strong within yourself. I think, you know, go in quietly confident and humble so you can hold your own in a man's world. But not anymore, not a man's world anymore. But
and it feels like I'm really sure that, you know, you can hold your ground when needed. You know what you want, so you really kind of like focus on your journey. So I doubt that, you know, a small conflict or situations where you feel like you had a doubt. I'm sure you, like you said, you did, but that was probably temporary, and it was just one of those. You
well,
know?
again, that's going back to who you surround yourself with and your mentors or people that are there in your workplace when you're feeling low. You know, you have those people, or you yourself go, do you know what? I had a blip today, but you know, what am I striving for? What is my passion? Is working in hospitality. So yeah, okay, we all have our bad days, but you have to remind yourself why you're there, and you're there to, you know, to carry out your passion or your dream, you know. Well, that's for me, certainly, you know. Some people in hospitality don't necessarily have that same idea, but at the end of the day, you're going to push yourself and fuel yourself. So, but also at the same time, females do naturally, you know, gravitate towards one another and stick together. So, you know, I think the more females we have in the industry standing together and, you know, saying, we can do this, we're here to stay here, you know, permanently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's needed as well. Like I know I work with a few, and especially on most of the times it was on a pastry side, because you have so much more attention to details and you can follow recipes. That's how I feel, and not that males can't, but then it just feels like you're a bit more strict on it, and you get it right pretty much every single time. Where not that only it was a guess on the other side, but it was just a bit more like on the pastry side. It felt like it was kind of needed. You know, having a woman on pastry side was actually such a good thing to have. Like genuinely, like so having that patience as well. It was about that. At least my experience.
Yeah,
it was a bit of that.
I think there is part of that you know. Naturally, there's always going to be more females in a pastry section, but that doesn't mean to say that a male can't come in and, you know, take authority and, you know, do that thing. But at the same time, it doesn't mean to say, you know, I've known a lot of people who have worked on a sauce section, you know, butchering meat, you know, with a massive meat cleaver and going, I'm doing this, or, you know, prepping a whole load of fish or cooking lobster or whatever. They prove that we can all do both. We can all do the same, you know, so naturally there's always going to be females in a pastry section because it is that, you know, attention to detail. Maybe one sex certainly has more a different skill set, you know. That's not my gospel or my opinion, but you know, sometimes some people are more naturally suited to certain areas, but you know, that doesn't mean to say that a male can't, you know, do intricate cakes or pastries, but that doesn't mean again to say that a female can't be, you know, butchering down half a pig, you know.
Absolutely.
So I guess it's having that, it's your skill set.
Yeah. Do you see yourself continuing in pastry, or it's just a temporary thing? It's just like, I want to learn these quite well and move on to the next, or it's pastry that you want, something that you want to pursue in the long run?
Yeah, I think for me, pastry is a bit of a dying art form, in the sense of, you know, there's certain things in terms of chocolate sculptures and things like that a machine cannot do. That is something that is made by someone's hands and someone's knowledge and someone's talent. But again, that doesn't mean to say that doesn't happen in main kitchen. I think I've just always had that, again, a sweet tooth, and I've always had that interest or intrigue in pastry and how things work. So, you know, where I am at the moment is such a great environment for me to be in, because I'm learning everything I need to know in terms of pastry. But, you know, that doesn't mean to say that I would never consider not going back to main kitchen. You know, I always love, again, back in Jersey, going to, you know, the fishmongers and going to get a whole fish and then deciding that I want to prep it all down. You know, I've had that, again, going back to the male-female thing, I've had before going to a fishmonger's and they go, do you want us to fillet it all? And I go, no, I'll just have the whole fish. And they go, are you sure? And I go, yep, give it to me all. I'll take it all. I'll fillet it down. I'll make, you know.
And probably better than you.
No, you know, just using the whole fish for it is.
You get so much more out of it.
Yeah, and the stock and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'll always have those skills there, but I think, you know, for the time being, I enjoy pastry. I see, you know, that creative side coming out of me, that attention to detail that perhaps I wouldn't wholly get in a main kitchen, but I will always have respect for main kitchen. And I probably would like to go back there someday. But again, you just don't know what the industry is going to be like and where it's going to take you. So, but I have an understanding of both, which I think is potentially quite unique. I think a lot of people as a chef, they just say, oh, I want to be a pastry chef or I want to be a main kitchen chef. So the fact, you know, I have seen the other side of the kitchen, you know, sometimes I think pastry and main kitchen are just two separate parts, you know, they don't work in harmony together. But I think there's a lot of skills that I learned in main kitchen that I can still translate into pastry, which sometimes works in your benefit in terms of, you know.
It could be the other way around. I guess it was
it could be the other way around.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes some people think, oh, pastry chefs don't know how to sharpen their knives. And I go, I worked in a main kitchen, start sharpening my knives. So, you know, sometimes you can be a bit of a dark horse in terms of the knowledge and experience you have. But I think so early on in my career, you know, some people may say, oh, it was a bit of a, not a dangerous move, but to just specialize in one area. But I can say, well, I did main kitchen and I can do main kitchen. You know, I can still hold my own on a veg section, busy service, you know, on a larder, prepping all the things that need to be prepped, you know, by yourself, running that section. So, you know, it does teach you a lot, but I may jump back to the other side after I've done my pastry. I don't know, but again, the industry is so diverse. So
absolutely. What are your biggest challenges now, like at the beginning, because it's the beginning of your career? What do you feel like are the things that kind of like set you back on like, this is probably quite difficult, you know, how do we deal with this? Do you have stuff like that?
I mean, obviously there's probably two different things in terms of like personally and professionally, in terms of like the challenges within the industry and then the challenges for me personally. I say for me personally, it's probably that whole confidence thing. You know, I probably come across as probably quite a confident person who can hold my own. But I think a lot of the doubts that I've had considering whether I want to continue in the industry have come from myself and self-doubt going, am I good enough to do this? Because, you know, you do have to stand there and, you know, really kind of work hard and graft hard. And sometimes you think, I'm not cut out to do this. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. You know, so there's always times that you'll have that personally. But then again, the people that surround you are the people that encourage you and support you and go, no, you can do this. And you are actually quite good, you know? So sometimes all that doubt comes from the person standing next to you. So there is that kind of thing. I think a lot of the time you can be self-critical because you compare yourself to others. But at the end of the day, in hospitality, you're on your own journey. You're on your own route. You know, there'll be people there that influence you. You know, you'll have your hurdles, you'll have your downtime. So I think you put in so much blood, sweat and tears into the industry that, you know, you do have your doubts. And especially at a young age, you see some of my other friends, obviously they're not in the industry. I have friends who are in the industry and then friends who aren't from school or whatever. You know, I think you sometimes see the lifestyle they have and go, oh, this is a lifestyle choice. It's not just my job. So, you know, I think there is that element. And as a young person, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I just want to go out partying on a Friday night. And you go, well, no, actually, because I'm in at work, you know, for 10 hours the following day. So, you know, and I think in hospitality, you do miss sometimes those special moments, but it's all about, I think for me, the challenges that potentially some people might see as having is, you know, again, that work-life balance. But you just have to plan what you're doing on your days off. You have to plan, you know, what you're doing when you're fitting in your washing, when you're fitting in, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think that changes from week to week because, you know, you may be off on a Sunday, Monday, you may be off on the following week on a Wednesday, Thursday, or your shifts may be different. So you may go in at 1 o'clock. So you're like, okay, well, in the morning I can do my washing. It may sound laborious, but, you know, those are the things. But, you know, it's the lifestyle choice, isn't it?
Did you find it slightly easier because obviously whether you're off or not, your family is still not there.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was it's kind of, I know it kind of sounds stupid because obviously you still can do something else on your time off, but knowing that, you know what, since I'm not, whether I'm off or not, they're in Jersey, you know,
Yeah.
so I rather work kind of like occupying my time sometimes.
I mean, sometimes it can work in your favor in terms of, you know, oh, I have a Monday, Tuesday off, and, you know, they're working, so I guess I have to do all my, for me, adulting stuff. But then at the same time, if you get a Saturday, Sunday off, I try and make the most of it. I mean, a lot of my friends have now moved to the UK, so I try and kind of see if I can meet up with them, or if they're off, and we try and join up and things like that. So, you know, there is that understanding, and I think sometimes when you're not in the industry, it's very easy to say, oh, well, you work all the time, and, you know, it's that, not miscommunication, but it's, you know, sometimes, or they don't understand the lifestyle I have, or they go, oh, she's always working, you know, when can we ever see her? So it's finding that fine line, but also I think you have to take time to look after yourself. I think that's one of the massive things that I've learned, because also it's going to translate at work if you don't care for yourself, because if you're, you know, you do those long hours. So one of the massive things, eating healthily, a lot of chefs, you know, don't eat healthy. You know, we all do think if you work in a, you know, a really high end establishment, you know, that translates at home. A lot of the time chefs just want beans on toast.
Totally the opposite, yeah.
Totally the opposite, and no one understands that. But at the same time, you can have that now and then, but you really need to fuel yourself for, I think sometimes when you work in hospitality, it's not just a sprint, it's a marathon. You need to sustain that throughout service. You know, you can't just, even if you're front of house, you can't be jolly at the beginning of service, and then by the time the last table comes in, you know, you're on your knees. That's something, again, I think you have to really look after yourself and care for yourself. So that's probably, I guess, a challenge as well.
What's the standard of hours now, a week, for example, like in a place like that, you know, at a high level?
I think it varies. You know, one, two Michelin star place, or even a Michelin star place may be completely different to another one. Maybe different here. I think over here, a lot of places are really trying to find that work-life balance in terms of hospitality. And also, I think a lot of businesses are realizing it doesn't have to be the 80, 70 hours a week. It can be the 48. You just have to manage your team and just work around it. And I think that is massively something that is changing in the industry, and changing for the better. You know, realizing that you don't have to work all these hours. You don't have to be, you know, not treating your staff in that way, but, you know, there can be that nice level of lifestyle and still have that life outside of work. You know, I think the work-life balance term should be used loosely, because it's what you make of it. So, you know, the hours, okay, sometimes you do have to work over your overtime, over your hours that you're contracted, but, you know, at the end of the day, for me personally at the moment, it's 11 o'clock, out the door. You know, we don't want you to work anymore, you know. Sometimes business demands that, and you do have to work over it. You know, naturally in hospitality, you know, you have to wait till the last table leaves. If they want coffee, if they want their desserts later,
this is it.
That's what happens. But, you know, it's having that flexibility, I think, as well. But, you know, I think ultimately the hours don't have to be what they're sometimes advertised as. But likewise, what's on a piece of paper for a job sometimes doesn't translate. So I think, again, it's having that open mind, but equally, you know, having that understanding of the industry does not have to be how it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. A lot has changed, even
well, that's why I'm
pre-COVID.
trying to get the information from you guys, because I left like 5 years ago, and things from what I'm getting, they changing so much in better. Like literally, probably is incremental changes. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. Certain things, like I talked to Will in the previous episode, you know, will remain there. You know, the hours, you know, where you need to work, they're always going to be, you know, the time when other people are off, because
it's not going to be a 9 to 5. Well, that's just the way it is.
Exactly. It's just the way it works. So things like that, they will not change. But as you said, you know, working on the hours, relationships, can you know, in the kitchen, you know, on even the stuff that we were talking yesterday, HR, you know, there's not such a thing like years back.
No.
I mean, when I left, it was still there, kind of I would say the beginning. And in hospitality, although in theory it was there, you know, we wasn't, but now it feels it feels like it's part of the daily to the daily kind of like engine of the kitchen.
Well, I think in a sense you can think of hospitality as being what it was pre-COVID and what it is post. I think during COVID a lot of people had time to reflect, and that's why a lot of people left the industry, was they saw, we were all in lockdown, we were all doing, pretty much nothing, sitting at home, realized, well, actually, I don't have to be working the split shifts or working till 12 o'clock, midnight, 1 o'clock. I don't have to be doing that. And that's why a lot of people, I think, left the industry. But I think when you work in the industry, it's what you make it. You may have to do a split shift, but it's what you do in that split shift. Sometimes I used to go for a run. I was very lucky. I used to go run along St. Juan's, but that's something I didn't have to do. But it's all about, I think, having that time outside of work to switch off. Yeah. As I said, hospitality is a lifestyle choice, but you can switch off, and that's one of the most important things I think that I've learned, and I have been, or been said, just take that time outside of work, because it is your passion. It does become your life. It can become your life, but it doesn't have to be. You can have hobbies outside of work, and I think that's something that's really important in hospitality. Because hospitality is such a industry where it is your passion and it is something you really love. I think at the same time you have to find those hobbies or those interests or those quirks outside of work where you can just switch off from, okay, I had a bad day, or switch off from work and then go back in with a fresh mind for service. So I think that's something that's really important, then hopefully in terms of the hours and things. But I think ultimately nowadays within hospitality, if you look after your staff, they will look after you. It's like a manager. If you look after your staff, they will look after you. You're only as good as your weakest member. As weird as cliche that is to say, is that in hospitality, as I said, it's a team unit. It's all striving for the same thing. So, if you have someone that's not having such a good day, you've all got to help each other. And I think in terms of hours and things like that, hospitality does get a bad reputation, but it doesn't have to be like what it used to be, and you can still have a life. And one big thing at Le Manoir is looking after your staff and appreciating the hard work and the blood, sweat and tears that does go into hospitality, and saying rewarding them or thanking them for their work that they do when they're in work. I'm not saying when you walk into work you're skipping in and it's all hearts and flowers and lovely, because you are there to work. But equally, when you're off work, you have that time when you can turn off and you can, kind of try and forget about work and have that out of office sense. So I think, massively the industry is changing and evolving in that sense.
Is it harder for them for a place like this to get staff, or is it the same situation like for a pub, or because of obviously of the name they've got? Do they have like quite a lot of people knocking at the door, I want to work here? Or is a situation where they constantly have to look for stuff? I know you're not in a situation, obviously you're not HR, you're not employing people there, but how is the sense?
I think, hospitality is constantly evolving. So, there's always going to be jobs anywhere. And I think hospitality gets a bad reputation saying, they're always understaffed. It's always, not enough staff to meet demand and things like that. And it's, but hospitality is an evolving industry. Some people may stay there 2 years and it's time for them to move on. So I think places are always looking for people, but that's not a reflection in a bad way. It's sometimes because of business and things like that. So, somewhere like Le Manoir, I don't really know the ins and outs of the HR and things, but, if there is a position available, they will say, would you like to come? There are people who obviously come and they go, I don't necessarily want to work at Le Manoir, but I just want to have the experience of working there or gaining some knowledge. So I think, there's always going to be places that are looking for jobs, places that are looking for people to work. But ultimately, that's the nature of hospitality. It's constantly evolving. There are constantly people coming and going. So, I think in that sense,
it's just like a natural kind of like movement, nothing crazy.
It's a natural evolution. There may be some people in the industry that have, they've been there for 10 years or they've been there their whole career, and that's fine. But equally, someone may be there 6 months and go, do you know what? Tried it. It's not for me. And they move on. And I don't think that's a bad reflection on the business. Sometimes it is, but I think a lot of the time it's, that's the nature of hospitality. You know, at the Atlantic, if I wanted to, that could have maybe been my forever time job. But, you know, sometimes as a person, you have to move on. And that was not a reflection of the business, or wherever I've worked, you know, it's not a reflection on the business as such. It's more just me as a person. You know, some people just stay for a certain time, or they say, I really want here to learn this. And once they've done that, they go, okay, tick that box. It's time for me to move on. And that's what hospitality is about, is a constant evolution of people. You know, you do have that unit and that team, and going back to all those friends you have in hospitality, although you leave a place, you'll never forget the people you work with. You know, and I think just in terms of jobs and things, it's not a bad reflection. It's just people move on, or people find different things. It's like any industry.
Yeah.
People leave jobs. Finance, you know, people go to a bigger company, go to a different company. They're looking for something different.
It's life, basically.
It's life. And it's and also you as a person, you may be looking for something different in a job. So you go, okay, well, I'd like to leave because I'm looking for something different now, or, you know, so.
Yeah, but does it feel like, okay, you said how many? 50? Did you say 50, chef? Or how many?
Le Manoir. Yeah, so I think in the main kitchen it's around 50.
Okay, around 50. But are they understaffed still with 50?
No, I think when I joined, there's constantly people joining, but obviously there is a limit. You know, they're not going to have 100 chefs all in the kitchen. They'd all be like sardines. But, you know, I think it's that, again, keeping the workforce vibrant and alive. You know, if you have new people coming in, it changes the dynamic, you know, integration, all that kind of stuff. So some people may be really suited when they come in, or they may be there for a month and go, that's not for me. So, you know, again, in a workplace, there is a limit. And some places, you know, where I sent an email saying, you know, are you looking for anybody? They may not be advertising for somebody, but, you know, just sending an email, they may go, well, we're not looking for anybody right now, but try us in 6 months. We'll keep your CV on record, and, you know, we might have an offering. So again, that's also how hospitality works. You know, you may have people come and go. So again, there is limit and there is capacity in kitchens. But, you know, that doesn't mean to say there's never a job. You can always send an email and see what happens.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to hold you for much longer because you don't have much
I've said
time,
a lot of things, I know.
But you did, which is great, because honestly, like, you're so vibrant, and you got all the words with you. Then we could continue till tomorrow morning.
We probably could, to be honest.
This is it. But yeah, I don't want to keep you for too long, because obviously, you want to probably meet friends and maybe have a few drinks and, you know, enjoy what's
out in Jersey
from your trip in Jersey, because you're going back to the UK. But is there something that you would change? I mean, you in your short career, how do you feel like? What would you change to make this industry a bit more attractive? Is there something that you have in mind? What do you think?
I mean, it's a tough one because, you know, I think coming into the industry, you expect the worst, and I think you have to go in with an open mind in the industry. Sometimes I think, you know, obviously it does get a bad reputation, and you do just have to go in with an open mind and go, it could be like that, but that's not 100%, you know, not every place is like that. You know, and I think I am quite early on in my career. So, you know, I think going forward, it would probably be experience as much as you can, gain as much knowledge as you can from every single person, you know, even on your days off. You know, I was saying about having your downtime and things, but that doesn't mean to say you don't pick up a cookery book and read from that, or go, do you know what, for dinner I'm going to try out this recipe. You know, it may not work, but I may, you know, decide to put my own spin on it. And then that's where you evolve as a chef and as a person, you know, not just learning, you know, from other people, but learning from yourself and what do you want to get out of it and things like that. So, you know, I don't know. It's been a turbulent ride in terms of COVID and everything. I think the best thing I'd probably say is the people, and I'm so lucky to have been surrounded by so many great people in the industry, and you know, they've really made me be where I am today. So I think if I don't think I would necessarily want to change anything, because it's got me to where I am now. You know, sure, you have your high moments and your low moments, and some low moments, sometimes you wish, I really don't wish that happened to me. And, you know, in that moment you go, why me? Or, you know, I really don't enjoy the industry right now, but then it actually makes you a stronger person. So I think, in all honesty, I probably wouldn't change anything, because for me personally, everything happens for a reason. And I think, you know, it's got me to where I am. So but I think in the industry, you just have to go in with an open mind and ride the roller coaster. You don't know where it's going to go every day. You may do a somersault, you may do a U-turn. It's varied. So you just have to go in every single day with an open mind. Some people don't like that, some people do, but some people may say hospitality is a show. You have to put on, the show must go on. If you're not having a good day, you just got to go in, and you never know what's going to happen. So it's that constant buzz or thrill from every day being different, and dealing with things quickly in a situation. So I don't think I would change anything. That may be quite naive of me, as a young person.
Okay, so for people that want to find more about you or kind of like follow your story, because I'm sure they have a lot to see. Well, I check your Instagram, for example, and there's so many cool things there that you guys do and you do, and obviously with the team there, Le Manoir.
So I have an Instagram which is @kitchenbean. So a bit of a pun, obviously, being a Jersey bean and working in a kitchen. So that's my Instagram handle if anyone wants to find me on there. Obviously a few like insights behind the Manoir, behind the scenes, which obviously they encourage us to do and they like us doing, kind of, seeing that behind the scenes and where the magic happens. But, stuff that I do at home myself on my days off, it's not 5-star, it's not, 2 Michelin, but it's sometimes things that I just like to do. So, maybe baking cookies or brownies or whatever, or recommending some books I try and do. And just generally my journey or my opinion of the industry. Or places to eat, things like that. So hopefully it's interest to people.
It was well, I went through it, and even stories and everything else, and it shows your journey pretty much from the beginning. And it's actually so cool because it kind of helped me with the podcast as well. You're kind of getting an idea, who you are. But for someone that's interested into cooking or professional cooking especially, they'll have a lot to say. Absolutely.
Well, hopefully it inspires people, or just gives them a bit of an insight.
I really hope that even this podcast inspires people, because you're so passionate and you're so vibrant and you really want to do, and I know you're going to do well. I know it's not even I don't even need to kind of be very good at predicting, because if you're going to continue the same way with the attitude you've got, there's no question about it. And maybe in a few years time, we're going to have you here as a head chef, as a I don't know about that, but who knows? Owner, head pastry chef and everything else, because I'm sure that you're gonna want to progress, in your career, and you're not gonna be settling just at the regular job, because it's not a regular job, but I'm talking just being okay with where you are. Yeah,
I think for me it's just pushing on in the industry and seeing how far I can get, and likewise doing this, I hope that, gives an insight to people. And the mentors that I had really pushed me in the industry only 5 years in. So I hope that anyone watching this now, or even, people that I've worked with previously, have a bit more of understanding of who I am as a person, and, go, or take even something, even good or bad from this,
Absolutely.
Just about the industry, which is something hopefully we can all do, I guess, inspiring the next generation.
Surely, absolutely. Thank you so much for being a guest. You. And wish you a safe journey back to the UK.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the future. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.